Hello everyone, this is Timo from ProductiveSuperdad.com, and today I'm very excited to be talking with Thanh Pham of AsianEfficiency.com. And if you have been interested in time management and productivity for any length of time, so you must have heard of Asian Efficiency. It's a blog run by two guys, Thanh Pham and Aaron Lin. And obviously the content is related to different productivity topics. Now, to be quite honest, I have been always amazed to see the level of detail and depth that these guys are putting to their posts on a frequent basis, and this is basically the reason why I wanted to have an interview with them, because I knew that they would have lots of great productivity advice to offer for the rest of us. And finally, this is the time when I have Thanh on the line with me. So, Thanh, welcome to this call, and how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm pretty excited to share my story and give a little bit of advice to everyone who's listening.
Yeah, sure. I made a quick introduction, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about Asian efficiency, what it's all about, and all that.
Sure. So Asian Efficiency started about 2 years ago. It started by myself and my friend Aaron. And so we have a lot of mutual friends, and they noticed that we got a lot of work done in less time, and we sort of lived like a laid back lifestyle. And so people were always asking like, how do you get so much stuff done, and how do you do all these things? And we were just like, well, we just do this and this and this. If you do the same thing, then you can achieve the same results. And so, so we're both really enthusiastic about productivity and managing our time the most effective way.
Hmm.
And so we started to think about, sharing our knowledge. And so we started the blog, and it was kind of like what we call a passion project. It was
Yeah.
really something, that we're really passionate about. And we noticed that sort of in the industry and in the productivity world, there was a lot of stuff that was really good. There was also a lot of stuff that was missing that we think that we could contribute to.
Hmm.
And so that's why we started the blog, and we started to write a lot of content. And so people started to pick it up, and we just started to write more and interact with more people, and basically just share our story of how we do things, which is a little bit different than what most people do, and the stuff that people put out there. So we just want to give like our own unique twist to the productivity techniques that are out there, and basically share our story. And so we've been doing that for about 2 years now. And for us, it's just a really a fun thing because we're always learning. We're always trying to learn from people like you, from people in the industry, and trying to figure out how can we take things to the next level.
Yeah.
And we noticed that, for example, in our industry, it's very common to use paper, for
Hmm.
example, and we're all about using technology. Like we're in our mid-20s, so we're young guys.
Yeah.
We grew up with smartphones, and so our angle is to really show you how to use technology to make you more effective, and we call this personal technology because everyone has smartphones or tablets nowadays, and people aren't really educated on how to use them more effectively. It's almost assumed that you know how to use them, and so we want to shed a little bit of light on that. And topics like email, for example,
Hmm.
it's kind of assumed that you know how to email, right?
Hmm.
It's not being taught in school how to compose an effective email, or
Yeah.
it's not taught in school how to use a computer effectively. Though you do have like basic computer lessons, for example, but if you can take care of the fundamentals, the basic stuff like how to like optimize your email, how to use your phone more effectively, how to communicate more effectively with people in your team, and so on. If you take care of that, then all the techniques that you learn from let's say getting things done or any other system, will just be giving you that extra edge to get more things done.
Yeah. That's really awesome. That's really great stuff. And like I mentioned in the introduction, that I have been always amazed to see that you are actually putting so much effort to each and every one of your posts that you are publishing. So I mean, how is it possible? I mean, do you work as a team? I mean, obviously you work as a team, but do you have any specific roles like you are focusing on certain type of posts while Aaron is doing something else, or how does this co-author blog work? I mean, it seems that no one else is doing this right now. Like you have guest post driven blogs like Lifehack, and then there are blogs which are authored by one blogger, but I think that you are doing something maybe a little bit different. So what is your your strategy of creating content, and do you have any certain roles that you are using in your team?
That's an interesting question because I actually never thought about that. But yeah, you're right. Like there are blogs like Lifehacker and Lifehack that are produced by a bunch of people, and then you have like single author blogs, and I think we're one of the very few who have two authors or three authors. So we're
Yeah,
we're sort of like a small team.
yeah,
But the way we do it is like Aaron has his unique strengths and I have my own unique strengths, and we try to utilize that as much as possible.
hmm,
Like we're all about utilizing what you're gifted at.
yeah,
And so we tend to avoid to write about things that we're not very competent about.
hmm,
So we'd rather focus on things that we are very good at, for example, like systems and using technology, whereas stuff like how to use paper to organize your day is stuff that we're not very good at, so we try to avoid those things.
yeah,
And so we have a call once a week where we just talk and catch up, and we try to figure out what we want to publish over the next couple of weeks. And so usually our content schedule is planned ahead, and it's really based around themes. So for example, over the next couple of weeks, we might want to write about email and how to use that more effectively. So you can expect more posts to be about email. And, so we try to think in terms of themes that we're really good at and then just write about that. And so the reason we want to get into a lot of detail is because we notice around the web that a lot of content is really great, but it doesn't force you to take action. And so we want to make sure that our content is really actionable. So we show you sort of the background info, and then once you read it, and if you get to the bottom of the post, which
hmm,
means that you probably like it, then hopefully we want to make sure that you take action. So we always want to conclude with something that you can do right now that will improve your productivity. And we are really content junkies. Like we read a lot, we
hmm,
listen to a lot of podcasts, and so we want to embed all of this knowledge and share that and see how we can make other people more effective. And it's also, to admit, it's also a little bit of a personal thing for us
hmm,
because if we write and teach it to other people, we ingrain it ourselves as well.
yeah,
Right? So one way to learn something is by teaching it to someone else.
of
And
course.
so, it's a little bit therapeutic for us as well to share this content. So we want to do that as much as possible. So it's beneficial for us, but also beneficial for everyone who's interested in reading our content.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, Now, let's talk a little bit about productivity systems, and we both know that there are lots of different systems out there, and for instance, what I have realized that as I have read different productivity and time management books, so it seems that every author has their own different systems and ways of doing things, and but if we talk about you, what is your preferred productivity system that you are using on a daily basis, or are you just using different pieces of different systems and then compiling them together as your own unique systems, or what is your take on this one?
Yeah, like I actually use a hybrid system. So I like to take the best out of all the systems that are out there and put it together to see what fits my lifestyle.
Hmm.
But when I initially started, I actually started to use Getting Things Done
Yeah,
by David Allen.
yeah,
And when I first read it, I really liked it because I can see how his way of thinking is very, very similar to mine. Like
Yeah.
if you read his book, you can tell that he's very interested in how the brain works and neuroscience, and
Hmm.
you can also read between the lines that he's really a systems thinker.
Yeah.
So it's like it's exactly how I think as well. So if I look at something, I think in terms of how does this interact with other pieces and what objects are in there and how does that affect this object if this happens. So it's kind of like an engineering way of thinking, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's why I really liked getting things done. So initially started with that. So you have like the capturing and the next actions and the weekly review. And if you do that, you'll have most of the stuff taken care of.
Hmm.
But then as I started to read more, I started to incorporate other things that I really liked that I was sort of missing in getting things done. So for example, in getting things done, you don't really have a way to prioritize. Right?
Yeah.
So it's mostly based on, okay, where am I right now and what are some of the stuff that I can do right now based on my current situation. Right? Whereas if you take a system like Agile Results, it's mostly focused on outcomes. Like
Yeah.
what are some of the things that I really want to focus on, today or this week or this month, and let me make sure that my actions are aligned with that goal. So in Agile Results, they call it monthly sprints or the rule of three
Hmm.
as a way of prioritizing your stuff, which is something I really liked. So I started to incorporate that. And then I started to look elsewhere. So for example, I learned about this guy called Tony Schwartz who wrote, Powerful Engagement. And that was very influential for me. And his take was all about, you don't really learn how to manage your time. You have to start learning how to manage your energy.
Yeah.
Because if you feel good and you feel like you're really energized, then you'll get things done. And so I started to incorporate a lot of his philosophies into my own system. So by taking care, for example, of my physical energy,
Yeah.
which means making sure you eat right, you exercise on a regular basis, and you sleep, and emotionally and spiritually and so on.
Hmm.
And another influential person was Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
And I remember reading his book, The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, when I was, I think, 15,
Yeah.
which is, I think, a little bit too early for me because it was too high level, I think.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. I
was
agree.
just, at that time, I was thinking, this is garbage. This is like, this is like common sense. Like, if people don't get this, like, why is this a bestseller? I don't get this.
Yeah.
But then like a couple years later when I was like a little bit more mature and I was a little bit more serious about my own productivity, I reread it again and then it made a lot more sense what he was saying. So I can understand why some people have like a bad taste about this book. But I think if you read it again a couple years later, you'll have a different take on it. And what he really taught me was the big picture stuff. Like what is it that you want to do long term? What is your big vision? And
Yeah.
how do you align your actions around that? And that's when, for example, getting things done comes into place. That works really well because you can take care of all the little gritty things that are going on in your life. But Stephen Covey helps you really see the big picture and how do you make sure that stuff that you do today is aligned with the stuff that you want to do, 20 years from now and have an effect on that, right?
Yeah.
So what are your big dreams? What is something that you want to like see happen in the world? And how do you make sure that translates into stuff that you do today? Which is something I think it's very difficult to do. Like people have trouble, setting goals for 1 month ahead. Imagine setting goals for 10 years ahead.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So I try to learn from a lot of different people, and those are just a number of people that I just mentioned. But if I read a blog post by you or by someone else in our industry, and I learn something about that, you know what? I will try to incorporate that too and credit those people as well. So I'm all about learning and taking the best pieces of everything and see what fits my lifestyle, and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and I agree that that I feel that many times there are lots of systems out there, but uh, you'll just have to make your own decisions and test it out to see how it works for you, and then make necessary adjustments, and I'm pretty much, my history is like what you had was that when I started out learning about time management, so I started by reading David Allen's book, but then I have been reading lots of other other books by other authors, and I feel that many times, even though there is this great system that those guys have been developed, so when you actually tweak the system for your own needs, so it serves you much better than just taking it out of the box, because of course every one of us have a different type of situation in their lives, and their environment is different, so taking the time to actually tweak the system to meet your personal needs is, I believe it's the right approach to any system out there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people confuse some of these systems as being too rigid or too strict.
Yeah.
So if you follow it by, exactly by the book, sometimes it will feel very rigid. And, some people need that. Some people are very disorganized and they need sort of a structure or a framework to work within.
Yeah.
Whereas other people, they're already too structured and they want to have a little bit more freedom. So they have to sort of work outside of the box. So it really depends what kind of person you are, and see what you need to do to take your effectiveness to the next level. And I think when you first start off, it's very difficult to sort of determine that. So that's why people will follow exactly the rules that are laid out. And if you stick with it and actually try to apply it, then over time, that's when you sort of get the insight of, okay, in this case, I have to just sort of learn how to capture things, but you know what, I eat well, and my brain is functioning pretty well today. You know what, I can capture that later, for example. So you can be a little bit more spontaneous, and you have a little bit more freedom of how you do things. And so, my advice for most people would be, try to follow a system as long as you can, and then try to make it your own at some point. Because, like you just said, everyone is unique in their own way.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different lifestyle. So, try to adjust the system to fit your life and your own needs. And I think most systems out there that are pretty good are able to do that. It's just be experimental with that.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's talk a little bit different, or cover a little bit different topic, although it is related to productivity, but still, I mean, we all know that nowadays the level of entry when it comes to starting an online business is very low, and lots of people are moving from having a corporate business to their own businesses, and it basically means that most of the time you have to keep building your business while you are working full time. But eventually, when you start to work from home full time, so the environment is of course very different in some ways than what it is at the real office, at your day job. What would you say? What would be those essential keys for improved home office productivity? Anyone who is actually starting his own or her own home office and wants to stay productive in home environment. So what kinds of tips would you have for that kind of person?
Oh, that's a really good question. Because I know when I first started off, I had a lot of trouble with this,
Yeah.
working from home. And I think it takes a certain discipline. Like if you work for yourself and you work from home, you're your own boss. Like
Yeah.
there's no one else telling you what to do, when to do it. You have to make your own decisions and call the shots. And so you have to be really disciplined in that sense. And I think boundaries is really, really important.
Yeah.
And what I mean with that is, you have to set up rules for yourself and stick with them. So for example, it's very easy to say to yourself, you know what, I don't feel like working today, so I'm just going to lay in bed, and not do anything, right? And not make up for it. Because you know what, I'm my own boss, I can do whatever I want. But, if you're just starting off, that's not really going to help you. And if you had a normal job, then, you were still forced to go to the office and start working, even though you didn't want to. Now, you have the freedom to do whatever you want because you're your own boss, but, that comes with a certain cost, right? Being able to stay disciplined that way.
Yeah.
So what I would suggest is to grab a piece of paper and write down, like, what are some of your personal rules when it comes to working from home? What are your hours? How long are you going to work on things? What time of the day are you the most effective? And make sure that you go airplane mode. What I mean with that is whenever you're really focused and creative, for example, if you're a morning person, then
Yeah.
make sure that no one can disturb you in the morning.
Yeah.
So you have to also, let your spouse know or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your children that, what, between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. I cannot be disturbed. That's
Yeah.
like my time, right? And you have to set up expectations with other people. Like just because you work from home, some people think that, oh, you know what, I can disturb him anytime I want because, he's not really working, he's just
Mm.
home.
Yeah.
So you have to, set up expectations with those people around you. And I think that's really hard to do because, making your own schedule is great. But like I said, it requires a lot of discipline. The other thing I would suggest is setting up a separate office. One
Yeah.
thing I started to do in the beginning was I had my desk in the same room as my bedroom,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like for some reason my brain just couldn't distinguish between when I was resting and when I was working because I was basically in the same room the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the nice thing about when you go to an office at work is that when you go to work, your brain starts to switch and think differently in the
Yeah.
sense that, okay, now I'm going to work, so I'm going to, be in this behavior. And, when you work from home and your desk is in the same room as your bedroom, then, it almost feels like you're tied to your desk all the time. Like it's always like I can always be on, I can always be working because you know what, my desk is right there.
Hmm.
So you have to sort of um, you make it very difficult for yourself to mentally make that switch. So
Yeah.
what I would suggest is if you have the opportunity to do so, and you have the luxury of having an extra room, make sure you set up the extra room as an office for yourself. So you have your bedroom separately from your office. And if you can do that, then whenever you enter your office, you can mentally make that switch and think, oh, okay, now it's work time. Now I'm going to focus. Now I'm going to get creative and do things.
Yeah.
And then when you leave your room or your office, I mean, then you can sort of mentally switch and think, okay, now I'm going to take a break. I'm going to grab some food and actually rest and get some renewal going on. So making that contextual switch is so key, and that really changed my productivity at home. And that's like if there's anything you're going to take away from working from home, like do that. Now, if you don't have the luxury of having an extra room, then some people like to work from coffee shops or from the library and see if that works for you.
Yeah.
So one thing when I was traveling around a lot was I tried to do it from coffee shops and library, but I would only do it during the times when I was very, very focused and creative.
Yeah.
So for example, I know I'm a morning person, and my best times are between around 8:30 and 11 a.m. So what I would try to do is go to the coffee shop or library around that time and start focusing and working. And then when I get home, I can do all the other stuff that, doesn't require a lot of focus and attention. And I can do that in the same room I was in when I was, living in a small apartment. So, try to do that if you don't have the luxury of having an extra room.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I like to wake up very early, and I think that there is also very practical reason for that. I know that since me and my wife had a baby almost a year ago, so things have changed quite a lot, and I know that having that free and a peaceful time, at least a couple of hours, that's the only way to have that is to wake up, somewhere around 5 to 5:30 in the morning. And I know that I have at least 2 to 3 hours of my own personal time to do my stuff. And also I know that when the evening comes, so I want to spend time with my family and play with my kid and do all that. So for the practical reasons, it's also very very good habit to wake up early. So I know that I wasn't a morning person in the beginning, but I guess it was something like that. I grew up into that habit. So I realized that this is the only way to actually keep myself productive and move along and move forward with my projects. Uh, that's really the most important part of the day. And also what you said, which is very important, that you are not kind of mixing the roles between your rooms, so to speak, so that you have a separate space for working, and then you have separate space for sleeping and all that. So I think that's a very good thing that you can take from your day job, is that you go to work and then you are physically there, but then when the workday ends, so you are coming back home, and then you are once again in a different physical location, so you are able to separate yourself from the work. So that's a very important point that you brought out. So that's great.
Yeah, like a little side topic on that is, like you just said, like waking up early has been a big game changer for you.
Yeah.
And like I totally agree with that. Like I think in the mornings is when most people work the best. Now, if you're like a night owl, then I can see the difference. But like for example, when I wake up really early, I have that feeling of like everyone's still sleeping, and I'm up early, so I can have my own time.
Yeah.
And also when you wake up, that's when you have a little of a reset in your brain, and that's when your willpower is the largest, right? That willpower is like sort of like a tank.
Yeah.
And that goes down, the longer you stay awake, because you have to make more decisions, as you stay awake. And so, if you want to start, like you said, if you want to start your own, like online business on the side, and you get home from work, most of your willpower is already depleted, right? So you have to, either, force yourself to wake up earlier, so you have that willpower to get a lot of work done in the morning, or you do it late at night, but then you have to make sure that, you have enough, desire and willpower to make this happen.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Now, I think that there's a great actually bridge to this next topic, the thing that I wanted to talk about, and it's the product that you guys just released called Better Sleep, and sleep is something that actually fascinates me quite a lot, because we all know that it's very important part of everyone's life, and it's a very important element when it comes to productivity as well. Now, it's not just how much you sleep, it's also the quality of the sleep. So based on your knowledge, what would you say when it comes to improving the quality of sleep? What would be those key elements or important ways to do it?
I think there are a couple things, but the easiest thing that people can implement is implementing what we call an evening ritual. So the time you decide you want to go to sleep, you want to give yourself about an hour or so to transition into sort of that relaxed state where your body and your mind is really relaxed, so that you can transition into sleep without any problem.
Yeah.
And so what a lot of people have trouble with today is falling asleep and getting the quality of sleep that they need. Like, just because you were in bed for 8 hours doesn't mean that you slept for 8 hours, right? And so an evening ritual is basically a sequence of things that you do every single night before you go to bed that helps you put yourself in a good mood and a relaxed state, so that by the time you turn your lights off, then you fall asleep right away. And so one of the things you want to avoid is having a lot of light in your room. So if you have your computers, if you have your alarm clock, and all these things are, if these things are blinking all the time, then it's very difficult to fall asleep. You want to make sure that your room is as dark as possible, because you want to make sure that melatonin, that hormone in your body, gets released, and it doesn't get released when there's a lot of light in your room, right? So as soon as you wake up and there's sunlight in your room, that production of melatonin stops, and that's when sort of your body starts to kick in and wake up. So when you go to sleep, that's when you want to make sure that hormone gets generated in your body. And the way to do that is by making sure that there's no light in your room.
Yeah.
So try to avoid, using the computer an hour before going to sleep. Using a tablet is okay, but you want to avoid like bright lights. So if you can install like a dimmer in on your computer, so that there's this program called Flux that I can recommend, Flux.
Yeah.
So what it does is based on your location, it will determine when the sun goes down, and when it does go down and gets dark, it will dim your screen
Okay.
without you even noticing, so that it's not as bright and it's not as in your face. So it's easier to fall asleep. And meditating has really helped me to fall asleep.
Oh.
And it only takes like 5 or 6 minutes, but it relaxes your body, it relaxes your mind,
Yeah.
and it makes it so much easier to fall asleep, because a lot of people just have trouble transitioning to sleep because they worry about a lot of things, because
Yeah.
there's so much there's so much like going on in their head that oh, I have to do this tomorrow, I have this commitment, I have to do this birthday, I got to buy this thing, this birthday is coming up, I got to buy this present. And if all these things are racing through your head, no wonder you can't fall asleep, because you're just worrying too much. So by meditating, you can sort of like eliminate that and calm your mind, and then sleeping becomes almost natural as a next step. If that doesn't help, then what you can do is make sure you write down on a piece of paper all the things that you're worrying about, and make sure that you write down a commitment to address that the next morning when you wake up.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you know that you have to put gas in your car the next morning and make sure you have enough cash on you, then if that's keeping you up, just write it down. Like, make sure when I wake up that I put gas in my car and that I have enough money. And when I wake up, I'll take care of this. So if you write that down, you externalize that and release that from your psyche, and then falling asleep becomes almost very, very, very easy. So these are the practical things that you can do. So implement an evening ritual, something that relaxes you, and externalize everything as you can, as much as you can, so that your mind and body becomes really calm, and falling asleep becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's really great advice, and something that I realized was that some years ago I had quite a lot of difficulties of getting sleep in when I went to bed on Sunday evenings, and I realized that it was basically because of my irregular sleeping rhythm. So that's I would have a very, very typical schedule from Monday to Friday. I might go to work, and I have a very, very stable routine and a system that I was following. But when the weekend came, I stayed up very late, and I also woke up very late. So when I did this on Saturdays and on Sundays, so it was quite obvious that it was very difficult for me to go to bed at 10 p.m. all of a sudden, when I was going to bed like 2 to 3 a.m. Actually adjusting that rhythm, so that nowadays I'm actually going to bed at the same time every night, so the rhythm is very regular, and that definitely helped me with that particular problem.
Yeah, having that routine is so key. I totally agree. Like I try to go to bed at the same time every night as well, so that my body sort of knows that by the time 10:30 hits, it's time to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm really energetic and focused, and I want to get work done, and I will sort of bypass that rule and get some work done, because I believe in whenever you're really creative, take advantage of that. But I try to stick to the routine as much as possible, even on weekends if I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the reason we think sleep is so important is because it forms the foundation of your physical energy.
Yeah.
And the basic idea is that if you're tired, there's just no way you're gonna get things done.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You just can't focus, and you can't really think. And if you're sleep deprived, you're almost it's like your productivity is like equivalent of someone who's slightly drunk.
Yeah.
even
true.
though on the outside it doesn't look that way, but when it comes to attention to details and things like that,
Yeah,
exactly the same thing. So the easiest way to fix your productivity is just getting more sleep. If
yeah,
you do that, then anything that you learn on top of all those systems that we talked about earlier and the programs that you use, it just becomes you become a lot better at using them. And so then as a result of that, you have this like sort of butterfly effect that everything else starts to kick in and becomes a lot more efficient the way you do things.
yeah. That's true. That's true. Um, Now, let's talk a little bit about tools, productivity tools, and I think that this is the same way as it is with systems. There are lots of productivity tools out there, but I was wondering what types of tools Asian Efficiency has in their toolbox. What are your productivity tools that you're using on a daily basis, and why is it so? Are there certain reasons why you're using this certain type of tool?
Sure. So um, when I use tools and when I decide to pick tools that I want to learn,
Hmm?
my main criteria is that it integrates with other tools that I use
Yeah,
because I'm a firm believer of integration of things. So the reason I switched to Apple is because a lot of the programs that are on there integrate really nicely with each other.
yeah,
And that's, I think, sort of missing on Windows, even though I haven't used Windows in a couple of years, so maybe it has changed since then.
hmm,
But on a Mac, I know for certain that a lot of programs that I use integrate with each other. So for example, with Apple Calendar, I can manage my appointments and all that stuff. And a lot of the programs that are out there on the Mac, they use that data to sort of implement in their own program. So it uses everything nicely within this ecosystem. So like for example, my task manager is OmniFocus. And the reason I like it is because it integrates well with other apps that are out there on the Mac. And also it's very customizable.
yeah,
And if you're a beginner, OmniFocus might be a little bit scary.
hmm,
It's a little bit difficult to use in the beginning and has a little bit of a learning curve. But once you get past that, it's really really powerful.
yeah,
My my program for taking notes is NV Alt by Brett Terpstra.
hmm,
I think it's really fast. It's you have a lot of keyboard shortcuts, so it's very easy to use, and it's very plain, which I kind of like for just taking text notes.
yeah,
And as far as text editor goes, I really like Sublime Text.
hmm,
It's quite expensive, but if you're a power user, then this is a really great editor to have. Like it has a lot of modules, and the reason I liked it as well is because it has tabs. I'm sort of a tab addict. I
hmm,
don't like using separate windows at all. Like I want
yeah,
to have everything on the same window, so tabs is really important for me.
yeah,
Another program I really like is My Manager.
hmm,
So I'm a big fan of mind mapping. So using trees and nodes to visualize all the data that I have and sort of brainstorm on things. So mind mapping is my favorite way of brainstorming and taking notes. And I think Mind Manager is probably the best program for that. A little bit expensive as well, but once you get past that and use it, then it's definitely worth it. One other program I want to mention is DevonThink.
hmm,
So I've been an Evernote user for a very long time,
hmm,
and I really liked it, but there were a couple issues with it, so I started to look elsewhere. And I noticed that DevonThink was an alternative for that, so I've been playing around with that. So I haven't still decided yet which one I like more because I like Evernote a lot, but DevonThink has its pluses as well. So I'm trying to currently play around with that because I have basically different types of information I want to store. And DevonThink does that really well, and Evernote does that really well. So I'm trying to sort of evaluate which is better right now.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. Actually, I'm still a PC and a Windows user, but I'm planning of making a switch to Mac very soon. So I was more than interested to hear about your opinion about different programs, and why do you think that Mac is nice, because it integrates well with other applications. So I know that you have written quite a lot of articles, for example, related to OmniFocus. So I'll just have to take a look at those posts on your blog and learn more about it, because I wanna try it out. I have heard so much about it. So that's very interesting to hear what you had to say about it. So
Yeah, I think I really think it's one of the best task managers out there.
yeah.
Like if you just want to have a very simple to-do list where you write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things
Hmm.
and just have a box next to it, then that's not the program.
Yeah.
But if you're very sophisticated and you have a lot of things going on in your life, then you want to make sure that your task manager is sort of capable of evolving with you as
Yeah.
you grow as a person as well.
Yeah.
And so not a lot of task managers can do that, but I think OmniFocus can, and I think it's also one of the better.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. That's great. Now we are entering to the last question on this interview, and time flies very fast, and it has been a great talking with you. But before we finish this interview, so I would like you to tell all of our listeners, when this interview ends, and we are finishing this one. So, what would be the one certain productivity tip that anyone or any person should implement after listening to this interview, so that their lives would be maybe a little bit more simpler and more productive?
If there's one tip I would give someone, it would be start tracking your time and
Yeah,
reevaluate how you spend your time.
yeah,
And I think people need to be more aware of how their day are flying by, because I think a lot of people are not conscious of how they really spend their time,
yeah,
and sort of think at the end of the day, oh, where did all this time go? What did I really do today?
hmm,
You want to make sure you're bringing like awareness to that. So start tracking your time, write on a piece of paper, for example, every hour what you did.
yeah,
Or if you have a smartphone, use an app that will track your time. Anytime you do something else, switch tasks. So you start tracking that. And then by the end of the week, if you do that for 7 days in a row, you'll have a very clear idea of where your time went. And
yeah,
then if you can notice that you procrastinated, let's say 5 hours in a week, well, if you can bring that down 1 hour, that's one more hour you can use for other things that are more useful and purposeful. So start tracking your time, because numbers don't lie.
hmm,
And if you can bring awareness to that, to how you spent your days, then if you make adjustments, then you'll be a lot more aware. You make better decisions, and you'll just be more productive overall.
Okay, that's really awesome advice, and I hope that everyone starts to track their time, because I definitely agree with this advice. I have realized this myself, that when you have those stats on a document, so you are able to see how you are spending your time, and many times you are finding out things that wouldn't be possible otherwise. So do a favor to yourself, track your time a couple of days, and then that's the only way to really understand how you're spending your time. So yeah, I agree. Hey, Than, it has been a pleasure talking with you. Time flies, and I know that there are lots of different topics that we could be discussing about, and maybe we could just devote a certain theme or topic the next time we are talking or having an interview, hopefully sometime in the future. So thank you for being on this call. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me and sharing my story.
Yeah, of course. So anyway, thank you for your time, and I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.
But